Ever since he got that new job, my heart had been racing. It wasn't just his achievement, it was a milestone we had been waiting for together for years. A moment to celebrate, to reward ourselves and us. We'd struggled through life, through delayed plans, long days where money and time never seemed enough. And now, finally, the opportunity had come. He wanted to make it a romantic getaway, perfect, just for the two of us. He already booked it, he said over the phone, excitement clear in his voice. A beachfront resort, a room with a king-size bed, a tub facing the ocean, couples massages included. Everything's taken care of. All you have to do is come. I could picture it, the morning light streaming through the window. The smell of the ocean mixing with the scent of essential oils in the tub. Him smiling at me as I dipped my toes into the warm water. I imagined us holding hands on the king-size bed, laughing after a day, exploring the city, quietly enjoying our private moments. A warm smile, a surprise hug, and the world felt like it belonged to just the two of us. The excitement was overwhelming, yet a tiny knot of worry lingered. I knew I was about to face a big challenge. Work couldn't be postponed. Some family responsibilities piled up. I began to wonder whether I could even go with him, but all those worries faded when I saw him. In his eyes, I read pride and joy of pure happiness I wanted to share. "We're going together," he said, holding my hand tight. "This is our moment." The days that followed were all about preparation, booking flights, packing, making lists. I pictured every little detail, the blue bikini I wanted to wear, the light dress for our first evening, even the book I wanted to read while lounging on the beach. Everything seemed perfect, like the universe had aligned for us to fully enjoy this happiness. Then, just one day before our flight, I got the news. I couldn't go. My heart sank into an endless void. The reasons were unavoidable. A sudden work assignment that couldn't be postponed. Important family matters that needed my attention. I stared at the plane ticket, feeling a nameless ache. The dream vacation, the private moments, everything we had looked forward to it, all vanished before my eyes. When I called him to tell him, I could hear the disappointment in my own voice, then a brief silence on the other end. He wasn't angry or upset. Instead, he frowned, like he was trying to ease my pain. "I understand," he said. "I know you can't go. It's okay, we'll plan another trip." But it wasn't that easy to accept. I pictured him standing on the beach, in the luxurious hotel room. Every detail we had talked about now, just a distant dream. Disappointment mixed with longing made me want to cry. I whispered to myself, why does this have to happen now? For hours, I tried to calm down. I looked out the window at the last rays of the day reflecting off the city and reminded myself that life isn't always perfect. But my heart kept racing, haunted by the images of the trip. Him smiling at me as we watched the sunset, sunlight dancing across the water, waves lapping the shore. And I wouldn't be there. That night, we still talked. He asked what I wanted him to do, how he could make sure the trip wasn't wasted. I stayed quiet, smiling faintly, trying to hold back the emptiness inside. Deep down, I knew the real challenge wasn't just the vacation, it was how we would face unexpected changes in life together. And then a message appeared on his phone from a longtime female friend. She was someone he had trusted for years, shared everything with, and always counted on. She was free during the vacation, and he mentioned she could go if needed. I hadn't even reacted yet, but a strange feeling surged inside me, a mix of worry, a twinge of jealousy, and a lot of confusion. I closed my eyes, trying to think positively, but my heart wouldn't listen. I asked myself, is he inviting her just because no one else is available, or is there something I don't know? That question hit me like a small stone thrown into a calm lake, sending ripples through my mind. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything. I recalled each moment. Him getting the job, the happiness we shared, the excitement of planning the trip. Now, it all felt like a memory I never got to live. The emptiness, the regret, and the looming worry were heavy in my chest. Not just for the trip, but for what was about to unfold. But I knew love isn't just about romantic getaways or perfect moments. It's about how we face challenges, how we deal with change, and how we navigate life's surprises together. And even though I had no idea what was coming next, I promised myself to prepare for my emotions, for our conversations, and for the difficult decisions we were soon going to face. The morning after I told him I couldn't go, I woke up feeling hollow, as if the world had somehow shrunk overnight. My phone buzzed incessantly, but it wasn't messages from friends or family, it was him. He was texting me with updates, trying to explain what he wanted to do with the trip now that I couldn't join. At first, I tried to read the words calmly, but the moment my eyes hit one particular message, my chest tightened. Hey, my friend Jess can go with me if I can't find anyone else. I know it's not ideal, but I dropped my phone onto the bed. My heart felt like it had been strangled, not because I doubted him, not because I thought he would cheat, but because the thought of someone else sharing the space we had imagined together was unbearable. A hotel room with a king-size bed, a private balcony overlooking the ocean, couples massages. All of it was ours in my mind, a dream we had planned together, and now it felt like it was slipping through my fingers, replaced by someone else's presence. I wanted to scream, to type a furious reply, but instead I sat there, frozen. My mind went in circles. Is he really doing this? Does he not understand how I feel? Or is it just practicality? I knew logically that inviting Jess wasn't cheating. They'd been friends for years. There had never been anything romantic. But emotionally, none of that mattered. My heart had already painted 1,000 scenarios of what this trip was supposed to be, and in every single one, it was just the two of us. Later that afternoon, when I finally saw him in person, I couldn't hold it together anymore. The first words out of my mouth were sharp, almost cutting. You're seriously taking her? On our trip? He blinked, slightly startled. It's not like that, he said calmly, trying to sound reasonable. I asked a few of my guy friends, no one could go. My family isn't available either. Jess said she could come, and that's it. I didn't think it would be a big deal. I laughed, but it came out bitter. Not a big deal. Are you kidding me? This was supposed to be our trip. Everything we planned, word to gone, and you just replace me with her. He frowned. I'm not replacing you. You can't come, and I didn't want to waste the vacation. I thought, you thought. I interrupted, my voice shaking. You thought it was fine to just invite another girl to do the things we were supposed to do together. The conversation spiraled quickly into 2 weeks of arguments, each one worse than the last. Every time I tried to explain how hurt I felt, he said I was overreacting. You're being unreasonable, he would tell me. I'm just trying to make the best of a bad situation. But it didn't feel like a bad situation. To him it felt like a normal, casual choice. And that, I realized, was the real problem. I could reason with him, but reasoning didn't reach my heart. I couldn't stop imagining him and Jess laughing in our imagined suite, sharing cocktails, soaking in the ocean view tub, enjoying the massages I had dreamed of. I felt like an outsider in my own relationship, watching a life I should have had unfold without me. At night, I'd lie awake, imagining them there. It wasn't that I suspected him of doing anything wrong. It was worse than that. It was the sense of being erased, of watching my own dream vacation take shape in someone else's hands. I would picture him leaning back on the bed, smiling, the sunlight glinting off the water behind them, and I would feel my stomach twist. Friends noticed the change in me almost immediately. When I vented, they were horrified. "He can't seriously take another girl there," one friend said. "That's messed up." My family said the same. They understood the dynamic. Yes, he hadn't cheated, but the gesture itself, the act of inviting another woman to what had been ours, was shocking. My heart ached, not just from jealousy, but from a deep sense of betrayal. Not of action, but of expectation. And then there was the guilt. A small, stubborn voice in my head whispered, "It's not like he did anything wrong. You can't go. You're being irrational." I hated that voice, hated it for undermining my own emotions, but I couldn't silence it. Every time I tried to explain why I felt hurt, it would whisper, "You have to understand. He's not cheating. You're overthinking." I spent hours replaying conversations in my mind, turning every word, every text, every tone over and over like puzzle pieces I couldn't fit together. And each time, my anger and jealousy grew, simmering under the surface like a storm waiting to explode. Finally, one evening, I decided I had to confront him fully. Not through texts, not with muted hints, but face to face, raw and unfiltered. I needed him to understand what this felt like from my perspective, not as logic, not as practicality, but as emotion. "I need you to hear me," I said, my voice firm but quivering. "This isn't about Jess. It's about what this represents. You're taking what was supposed to be ours and handing it to someone else. I feel invisible." He looked at me for a long moment, silent, and then slowly nodded. I didn't realize it would feel that way to you. I thought I was just making the best of a bad situation. I didn't mean to hurt you, but words alone weren't enough. I needed to feel the gravity of his understanding, to see that he recognized not just the surface problem, but the deep emotional wound that had been opened. I wanted reassurance that our bond, our plans, our dream, though delayed, was still ours, and no one else could take its place. As the days passed, the tension remained, simmering under polite conversation and forced smiles. Every plan he made for the trip became a reminder, every casual mention of Jess's availability a trigger. The vacation, once a shining beacon of love and excitement, had become a battlefield of emotions, jealousy, frustration, hurt, and the desperate need to assert my place in his heart. I realized that the trip itself no longer mattered, not really. What mattered was trust, understanding, and the invisible threads of expectation and loyalty that define a relationship. And I knew, deep down, that this test would either strengthen us or break us. In the days that followed, I felt as though the entire world had shrunk down to the four walls of my room. Everything outside faded into insignificance, leaving only the vivid images in my mind. Him and Jess on the beach we had dreamed of visiting together. I imagined them walking along golden sand, hand in hand, her hair catching the late afternoon sun, his shirt fluttering lightly in the breeze. My chest tightened with each detail, each imagined movement pressing into my heart like an invisible hand squeezing Dot. I saw him laugh, Jess laugh, the sunlight dancing across their skin as they clinked cocktail glasses under the setting sun. Every smile, every small gesture felt like a dagger plunging into me. I knew logically that he wasn't doing anything wrong, but emotionally, I felt replaced. I felt erased. Everything we had planned, everything we had imagined together, our private hotel room, the king-size bed, the balcony overlooking the ocean. The couple's massages had been carefully mapped out in my mind for just the two of us. Now, in my imagination, it belonged to someone else. Every text, every phone call from him was a subtle trigger. He tried to reassure me, it's just the situation, unavoidable. I still love you. Jess is only a friend. But those words could not compete with the relentless mental images. I could see them together in my mind, every laugh, every glance. I pictured them sharing private moments that we had dreamed of, moments that should have been mine. I felt like a ghost in my own story, watching my life, my dreams, being performed by someone else. The jealousy was unbearable. I found myself questioning everything. Did he think of me when he laughed with her? Did he notice her the way he had noticed me? Were the intimate, tender little moments we had imagined as ours now being shared with someone else? Every scenario I imagined made my chest tighten and my stomach churn. I felt powerless, trapped, and enraged all at once. Nighttime was the hardest. The city outside would fall silent, and I'd be left staring out at the darkness, imagining their shadows moving across our suite. I saw him smiling at her, telling a joke I should have been the one to hear first, watching her laugh in a way I had imagined she never could. I could almost hear the faint clinking of cocktail glasses, the soft laughter echoing across the balcony, the gentle slap of waves below. And all I could do was sit there, feeling as though I were being left behind in the most cruel, invisible way. I began to write, pouring every detail into a journal. Every imagined laugh, every moment of them together, every pang of jealousy and heartbreak, I recorded it. Writing brought clarity, yes, but it also made the pain real, almost tangible. I could smell the ocean breeze, see the golden sand, feel the warmth of the sun on their imagined skin. It was a beautiful cruelty, a vivid nightmare that I could not escape. Friends noticed. They saw the dark rings under my eyes, the tremor in my voice, the way I sometimes flinched at a random notification on my phone. "He can't seriously do this," one said, eyes wide with disbelief. "This is wrong." My family was worried too. They reminded me that a healthy relationship should not hinge on a single vacation, that trust and communication mattered more than imaginary scenarios. I understood this logically, but emotionally I was in turmoil. I stood in front of the mirror one afternoon, staring at myself, trying to reason through the emotions. Am I overreacting? Is this just a vacation? I asked silently, but when I looked into my own eyes, I could see the raw truth staring back at me. This wasn't just jealousy. This wasn't just insecurity. It was a profound sense of loss, a feeling of being removed from a shared dream that had been painstakingly constructed in my heart. I didn't want to lose the relationship, but I couldn't accept feeling replaced. Invisible, secondary. Finally, I decided I had to confront him, directly and without pretense. Not over text, not through hints, but face to face, or at least voice to voice, where he could hear the intensity of my pain. I called him one evening, my voice trembling but determined. You have to hear me. This isn't about Jess. This is about me, about us, about what I feel I've lost. He was silent for a long moment, listening. I poured out every imagined detail, walking on the beach together, sharing cocktails on the balcony, soaking in the ocean view tub. All of the things we had dreamed of together now, in my mind, being experienced by them instead of us. I recounted the tears I had shed, the feeling of emptiness, my heart shattering over and over in my imagination. He listened. Not a single interruption, not a single defensive remark. When I paused, he took a deep breath and held my hand. I never realized you would feel this way. I never wanted to hurt you. I promise I'll do everything I can to help us get through this. But promises alone weren't enough. I needed action, evidence that our relationship still belonged to us, that it had not been replaced. I realized the true challenge wasn't the trip itself, was how we navigated this storm of emotions, trust and love. That night I didn't sleep. I hugged my pillow tightly, telling myself I wouldn't give up. I would not let a trip, a friend, or any circumstance erode what we had built together. But deep down, I knew that to survive this emotional storm, we would have to face the pain head-on, the jealousy, the fear of being replaced, the gnawing insecurity that had taken root. And I truly feared, might not be strong enough in those quiet hours. I realized something else. The pain, the mental images, the jealousy, they were part of me, asserting the depth of my love. This storm, though excruciating, was a mirror reflecting how much I cared, how deeply I invested in our shared dreams. And if we could navigate it together, we might emerge stronger, more honest, more bonded than before. But at that moment, all I could do was sit in the dark, tears streaming down my face, feeling both fragile and fiercely alive, caught in the whirlwind of love, loss, and the terrifying power of imagination. As the day of the trip approached, my heart felt like it was about to leap out of my chest. Every small preparation he made seemed to intensify the pain inside me, as if I were witnessing our relationship being dismantled, piece by piece. I saw him packing his suitcase, checking passports, selecting close actions that had always seemed harmless, now felt like knives cutting into my heart. I tried not to watch too closely, not to pay too much attention. But when he smiled at Jess during a video call to discuss the trip, it felt as if my entire world had collapsed. That smile, those eyes, every familiar gesture I had once known intimately, now belonged to someone else. I wondered, did he realize how much this hurt me? Did he understand that these small, seemingly innocent actions were tearing my heart apart? Inside me, an emotional storm continued to rage. I loved him. I wanted him to be happy, but I couldn't accept being replaced in this way. The jealousy surged stronger than ever. I imagined endless scenarios, them watching the sunrise together, laughing at a seaside restaurant, enjoying the ocean view bathtub side by side. And all I could do was sit outside, trapped in my own loneliness. Every day, I questioned myself. Was I overreacting? Was I being too harsh on him? But when I looked deep inside, I knew my feelings were real. I could not pretend that I wasn't being excluded from a dream we had built together. I wanted to control everything, to stop it, but I knew reality was no longer in my hands. One afternoon, as he was packing, I approached him and said, "I know you don't want to hurt me, but I need you to understand how this feels. It's not about Jess, it's about me, about us." He looked at me, eyes serious, trying to grasp the depth of the pain I was carrying. "I understand. I'll try. Don't worry too much," he said, though there was a slight tension in his voice, as if he too felt the weight of the upcoming trip. At night, I sat alone by the window, gazing at the starry sky. In my mind, the images of him and Jess reappeared. They were laughing, talking, walking along soft sand. My heart felt simultaneously shattered and alive. I wondered if I was strong enough to trust him, to get through this fear of loss. The mental images of the trip were no longer static. They had become vivid sequences, like a film playing in my mind. I saw them enjoying a candlelit dinner on the balcony, the flickering light reflecting on their faces. I saw him placing a hand on her shoulder, joking with her, while I could only sit outside, powerless. Each imagined scene was a blade reminding me that our shared dream was being replaced. Yet, amidst the pain, I realized something important. I could not allow my imagination to destroy our relationship. I had to speak up, confront my feelings, set boundaries, and communicate my needs. I wrote down what I wanted him to understand. I wanted him to maintain loyalty, to ensure I never felt abandoned, to comprehend that love is not just words, but actions and empathy. Another evening, as he was about to sleep, I spoke directly. "I know the trip is coming up, and I can't go. But I need you to understand that I fear losing this relationship. I can't bear the thought of being replaced." He was silent, listening, then held my hand. "I understand you. I'll do everything we can to get through this together." This time, I didn't just listen to promises. I observed actions, the care he showed, the way he reassured me without judgment. I realized that the real challenge wasn't the trip itself. It is maintaining trust, sincerity, and love in the face of difficulty. That night, I hugged my pillow, telling myself I wouldn't let fear and imagination dominate my mind. I would hold on to faith in our love, even though the trials ahead were daunting. I knew that overcoming jealousy, insecurity, and the fear of being replaced wouldn't be easy. But if we succeeded, our relationship could emerge stronger and deeper than ever before. And then, in the silence of the night, I realized something crucial. True love isn't just about enjoying the good moments. It's about surviving the most painful challenges, trusting through uncertainty, and standing firm in the face of the deepest fears of losing what you hold most dear. That day, I couldn't endure it any longer. My heart felt like it was about to shatter, jealousy and the fear of being replaced surging through me like a tidal wave, threatening to drown me entirely. Every small action he took, checking his luggage, choosing clothes, even the smallest smile during a video call felt like knives slicing into my chest, one precise cut after another. I wondered if he truly realized how much this hurt me. Did he understand that these tiny, everyday actions had transformed into instruments of agony, tormenting me from the inside? All day, my mind spun with imagined scenarios. I pictured them walking hand in hand along the beach at sunrise, the first light catching Jess's hair, his shirt fluttering lightly in the breeze. I imagined them sipping coffee together on the balcony, candlelight flickering across their faces, laughing as champagne glasses chimed. I envisioned them laughing, talking, sharing small, private moments I had once imagined for us. Each mental image was a dagger to my heart, a constant reminder that all we had dreamed of, every plan, every wish, every intimate fantasy was now being lived by someone else. The jealousy was relentless, consuming. I asked myself, over and over, did he think of me when he laughed with her? Did he notice her the way he had always noticed me? Were the private, tender moments we had imagined for ourselves now being shared with someone else? I felt like a ghost in my own life, a powerless spectator watching our shared dreams unfold in someone else's reality. I could not stay silent any longer. I called him, my voice trembling yet firm with determination. I can't stay quiet anymore. You need to understand how I feel, not about Jess, but about me, about us. I don't want to lose you, but I also can't bear the thought of being replaced. He was silent for a moment, then said in a calm, steady voice, I understand. I'll do everything I can to make you feel safe. His words brought a flicker of comfort, but I knew that words alone weren't enough. I needed proof, tangible evidence of care and understanding. I needed to feel that he was truly listening. For the first time since this storm of emotion had begun, we sat face to face. I poured everything out, my imagined scenes, my tears, my fear of losing him. I described each vivid, painful scene I had pictured them experiencing: the sunrise walks, the shared breakfasts, the ocean view bathtub, their laughter, their private conversations. I didn't hide my tears or my fear. I needed him to see that love isn't just words, it's empathy, understanding, and loyalty. He listened without interruption. When I finally paused, he reached for my hand, his eyes steady, serious, and full of sincerity. I never realized you would feel this much pain. I never want to hurt you. I promise I will show you that we are each other's priority. A sense of relief slowly washed over me, but the fear remained. Could he truly keep this promise? Could our love survive such a test? I knew actions mattered more than words. He had to prove it through attentiveness, sensitivity, and genuine care for my emotions. In the days leading up to his departure, I wrote more than ever before. Every imagined scenario, every pang of jealousy, every moment I felt like I was crumbling, I documented it all. I envisioned the trip in painstaking, sensory detail, waking up, brewing coffee on the balcony, feeling the salty ocean breeze, the sun warming their skin, the echo of their laughter throughout the suite. Each imagined detail was so vivid I could feel it, smell it, see it almost as if I were witnessing it firsthand. Yet amidst all the pain and vivid imaginings, I realized something vital. If I let myself be consumed by these thoughts, I would lose this relationship. I needed to confront my feelings, articulate my boundaries, and express my needs. I wrote down exactly what I wanted: care, understanding, loyalty, and proof that our love could not be replaced. I reminded myself that if he truly loved me, he would act on it, not just say the words. On the evening before his departure, I stood by the window, watching him pack, select outfits, and talk with Jess about the trip. My heart both ached and throbbed with tension. I inhaled deeply, closed my eyes, and whispered to myself, I will trust him. I will be strong. I will not let fear take over. No matter how hard it gets, I will hold on to this love. When he finally stepped out the door, I didn't feel complete despair. Instead, a quiet, determined strength stirred inside me. I would stand my ground, face the jealousy, confront the fear, and prove that our love was strong enough to endure any test. That night, I wrote a letter to myself as a reminder: real love isn't only about enjoying good times. It's about surviving the hardest challenges. I wrote, the strength of love lies in trust, patience, and confronting fear. I will not let anything destroy this relationship. Not painful imagination, not jealousy, not fear. In the silence of the night, I felt something profound. This pain, this jealousy, these vivid imaginings, they were proof that I truly loved, that I had invested everything in this relationship. And if we survived this, our love would emerge stronger, deeper, and unbreakable. I closed my eyes, breathing slowly, feeling both ache and determination, ready to face whatever challenges awaited us. The day he left, the house felt unbearably empty. There were no familiar footsteps on the wooden floor, no scent of morning coffee he habitually brewed on Leah's silence that seemed to swallow me whole. I sat by the window, staring at the deserted street, feeling as though the world was moving on without me, leaving me behind, alone in my own home. In my mind, images of their trip played on a relentless loop, like a movie with no end. I imagined him and Jess stepping off the plane, sharing a taxi ride, sunlight catching Jess's hair, his smile radiant, his eyes full of intimacy. I pictured them entering their hotel room, arranging their luggage, sitting on the balcony gazing at the ocean, talking and laughing. Each imagined scene was like a blade reminding me that the dream we had built together was now being lived by someone else. I simultaneously wanted to avoid looking at my phone and couldn't tear my eyes away from the images, messages, and stories he shared. I saw him smiling, taking photos, talking with Jess. Every romantic moment I had once fantasized about us experiencing had become someone else's reality. My heart ached, a mix of jealousy, anger, and loneliness pulling me into a whirlwind of emotion I couldn't escape. Yet, amid the pain, I realized I had to regain control. I could not let my imagination or my tears dominate my life. I told myself that this was a test of love and trust. If I could endure it, our relationship would emerge stronger. I began journaling every day, recording every feeling, analyzing my thoughts, and reminding myself that he was still honest, still loved me. One morning, while looking at a sunrise photo he shared in a story, I suddenly understood something crucial. I could not compare myself to Jess. I could not allow her to occupy my place in his heart. I had to hold on to faith in myself, in the love we had built, and in him. The painful imaginings that had once tormented me became a mirror for self-reflection. I realized jealousy was not my enemy, but a signal that this love mattered deeply. I wrote everything down: my anger, my sense of loss, my hopes, and my determination to preserve our relationship. I also began questioning myself. Was I putting too much pressure on him? Was I being overly controlling or hypersensitive? I realized that for love to endure, I had to balance trust with the ability to express my needs and emotions. I resolved not to stay silent, but also not to let fear dictate my actions. Day after day, I watched him through messages, stories, and occasional short calls. I felt both pain and reassurance. I saw that he remained honest, attentive, and gentle, reminding me that this trip did not change his love for me. These small gestures became an emotional anchor, helping me stay strong. I started envisioning the future after the trip, us sitting together, having honest conversations about everything, learning to understand each other more deeply. I saw myself stronger, calmer, realizing that true love is not just about enjoying good moments, but about patience, empathy, and trust when facing challenges. One evening, looking out at the ocean through the window, I took a deep breath and whispered to myself, I will stand strong. I will overcome fear. I will trust him and our love. I felt a quiet strength rising within me, a determination I had never noticed before. In the days that followed, I noticed a shift in how I viewed our relationship. I no longer focused solely on pain or imagined scenes of him and Jess. I learned to cherish every moment, every small gesture of love, and realized that true love is resilient when it survives the harshest tests. I also began imagining multiple scenarios. If they laughed together, how would I react? If he became overly close, how should I respond? These imaginings no longer triggered panic. They became a way to prepare mentally. I learned to manage my emotions, view situations from different perspectives, and understand that trust and love are the only foundations that keep a relationship alive. Finally, as the trip neared its end, I prepared myself for the important conversation with him, a moment where I could openly share all the emotions I had harbored, and where we could learn to love each other more deeply. I felt confident, composed, and certain that our love could withstand fear, jealousy, and challenges if we faced them together. The night before he returned, I wrote a letter to myself, a reminder that true love is not only sweetness and joy, but the strength to endure trials, patience, and trust. I closed my eyes, breathing deeply, feeling my growth and resilience, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. The day he returned, I stood at the door, my heart pounding so violently I thought it might leap from my chest. The house was still a little cold, but the emptiness had been replaced by nervous tension and anticipation. When I heard the key turn in the lock, my legs nearly gave way. I had no idea how I would react to seeing him again. He stepped inside, his familiar smile still on his lips, but my eyes followed every gesture. I immediately realized that both of us had undergone separate journeys, him with the real experiences of the trip, and me with my chaotic emotions, endless imaginings, and lingering fears. Our worlds existed side by side in the relationship, yet an invisible distance had stretched between us. We sat down, looking at each other for a long moment. I took a deep breath, trying to control the mix of anger, jealousy, anxiety, and longing. I spoke first, my voice trembling but firm. I need to hear everything about the trip, but before that, I need you to understand how I felt while you were gone. He nodded, eyes serious. I know. I understand what you went through. I'm sorry if you were hurt. I began to recount the relentless imaginings, the jealousy, every moment I had pictured him with Jess. I did not hold back tears or mask my pain. I wanted him to see everything that had happened in my mind. To understand that love is not just words, it's an experience of deep emotion. He listened without interruption. When I paused, he took my hand, his voice low and steady. I never meant to hurt you. I understand that you went through a lot of emotions, and I appreciate your patience. We started talking about the trip itself. He recounted every moment, from the sunrise over the ocean to breakfast, to fun activities throughout the day. But the important thing was not what he said, but how he said it. Honestly, openly, and constantly reminding me that I remained the center of his love. Every story he told both pained me and helped me realize something crucial. Trust and communication are the only foundations that can sustain a relationship. It wasn't his actions alone that hurt me, but my imagination, my fear, and the lack of communication that had made me feel threatened. We laughed, we cried, and we learned to confront our true emotions. I told him, I realize now that I can't control you or compare myself to anyone else. I just need to feel cared for, loved, and to know that you're honest with me. He squeezed my hand tightly. I promised to always be transparent, share my feelings, and put us first. In that moment, I felt a wave of relief, yet I knew the challenge was not over. Trust must be rebuilt every day, through small actions, consistent empathy, and by accepting that both of us will have moments of weakness. We decided to spend the evening talking, not just about the trip, but about all our worries, fears, and expectations in the relationship. I shared with him my imagined scenarios and the loneliness I had felt while he was away. He shared his own sense of solitude without me by his side. 2 hours passed, and we were still sitting together, facing each other, listening, and learning empathy as night fell. I realized an important truth. Love is not always perfect, but honesty, communication, and trust allowed two people to overcome any obstacle. I knew that after this trip, we were not just a couple in love, but two people who had grown, understood each other better, and learned to cherish the relationship. Before going to bed, we sat together on the sofa, holding hands. I felt warmth, safety, and once again believed that no matter how painful the trials, true love always finds a way to survive. I closed my eyes, breathing deeply, aware that today we had weathered an emotional storm and stepped into a new stage of our relationship, a stage of understanding, trust, and maturity. After the trip, the house gradually returned to its daily rhythm, but it was no longer the same empty, anxious space. Instead, every corner seemed to carry the warmth of his presence. I noticed the subtle differences in how we looked at each other. There was no fear, no tormenting imaginings, only respect, trust, and a deep understanding that had been absent before. We began with small, seemingly insignificant actions, cooking dinner together, sharing the minutiae of our day, or sitting quietly on the sofa side by side, feeling each other's heartbeat and warmth. These ordinary moments, once taken for granted, now felt precious, almost sacred. Each action reinforced our bond, reminding me that love exists not only in grand gestures but in these quiet, consistent exchanges. I realized that trust is not simply declared, it is demonstrated. It shows in the little things, him letting me choose what to eat, listening attentively to my stories about work, asking how I felt about even minor events. I responded in kind, with honesty, revealing my fears and anxieties, but without letting them dominate my mind. Together, we practiced love through tangible, everyday actions, not just words. One morning, he brought me coffee in bed, smiling gently as he handed me the cup. I felt warmth spread through me, not from the coffee itself, but from the care reflected in his eyes. I thought to myself, this is what love really is: presence, attentiveness, and quiet acts of care. It doesn't require roses or exotic trips. We began to share emotions we had never discussed before. I confessed how, during the trip, I had imagined him with Jess, about the loneliness and jealousy I endured. He didn't respond with anger or defensiveness. He simply held me and reminded me that he loved me and never intended to hurt me. I realized then that honesty and open dialogue were the only ways to resolve misunderstandings and strengthen connection. Day by day, our bond deepened. We learned to face our emotions, to communicate our needs clearly, and to respect each other's boundaries. Conflicts that once felt like storms now became opportunities to better understand one another. I learned that true love is not only about happiness and joy, it is about patience, empathy, and the ability to forgive. We started creating small, meaningful routines, Sunday morning walks along the nearby beach, cooking together late into the evening, sharing a cup of coffee as the sun rose. These ordinary experiences now carried profound significance. I began to understand that love is not measured by luxury trips or expensive gifts, but by attention, understanding, and shared moments in everyday life. One evening, as we walked along the moonlit shore, the breeze from the ocean gently brushing our faces, he squeezed my hand and said, "I know you went through a lot while I was away, and I appreciate your patience. I love you and want us to always understand each other." I smiled, feeling every word resonates deeply. Each glance, each gesture carried weight and meaning. Reaffirming the depth of our connection, we also learned to let go of jealousy. Instead of imagining scenarios of him with someone else, I focused on the present, his small gestures, his smile, his words, and the care he consistently showed. I understood that jealousy only erodes trust, whereas sincerity, patience, and genuine concern are the true pillars of love. Our evenings became filled with simple yet intimate moments, cooking dinner while sharing stories and laughter, binge-watching a favorite show wrapped in blankets, or sitting together on the balcony as the city lights flickered below. These seemingly ordinary events now carried the weight of shared memories. and I realized that the quiet routines of daily life could be just as profound as grand adventures. I began journaling more, capturing these everyday moments, reflecting on our growth, and acknowledging the progress we had made. Each entry reminded me that our love had matured. It was no longer fragile or naive, but resilient, grounded in mutual respect and understanding. One late afternoon, we sat on the balcony watching the sunset, the sky painted in hues of gold and rose. He turned to me and said softly, "Even when things get difficult, I want us to remember that patience, trust, and understanding are what keep us together. I love you, and I want us to always grow like this." I nodded, feeling the depth of love in his voice, his eyes, his touch. It was a quiet, powerful affirmation of the journey we had survived together. I realized that healing was not a one-time event, but a daily process. Yet I felt grounded, confident, and reassured that we had grown stronger through the challenges we had faced. We had learned to love not only with emotion, but with action, patience, and trust. As night fell, we sat side by side, hand in hand, feeling each other's breath and heartbeat. I closed my eyes, taking a deep, calming breath, and allowed myself to feel the serenity and stability of our renewed connection. I understood that true love doesn't mean the absence of trials. It is about facing them together, growing through them, and emerging stronger. And now, more than ever, I felt ready for whatever challenges might lie ahead, with a deeper love and stronger heart than before. The morning light seeped slowly through the half-closed blinds, painting long, lazy stripes across the living room floor. There was a tension in the air that hadn't been there before, a sort of quiet anticipation, like the calm just before a storm hits. I could hear the distant hum of traffic outside, but inside, everything felt heavy thick with unspoken words and memories that had been simmering for months. I sat at the edge of the sofa, staring at the mug of coffee in my hands. The steam curled upwards, carrying with it the faint aroma of burnt sugar from the coffee shop down the street. My mind replayed every argument, every silence, every glance that had felt loaded with accusation or regret. And today, I knew things were going to break open, one way or another. It started with a message on my phone, short, abrupt, the kind that carried weight beyond its words. "We need to talk, now." My heart sank. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to pretend I hadn't read it, but I knew I couldn't. Not anymore. I took a deep breath and headed out, stepping into the crisp morning air, feeling the chill bite at my skin like a reminder that life rarely offered comfort when you needed it most. When I arrived, I found them sitting at our usual coffee spot, a corner table by the window that had witnessed years of laughter and arguments alike. The familiarity of it felt almost cruel today. They looked up as I approached, their eyes carrying a mixture of guilt, fear, and unexpectedly hope. I slid into the seat across from them, and for a moment, silence stretched between us, thick and unyielding. I don't know where to start," they finally said, voice tight, almost breaking. "I've been holding so much in, pretending it wasn't there. But I can't anymore." Their hands trembled slightly as they wrapped around the mug, knuckles white. I nodded slowly. "I've felt it too," I admitted, my voice quieter than I expected. "But we've been dancing around it for months. I think we're both scared of what will happen if we actually face it." They exhaled sharply, the tension in their shoulders easing just a fraction. "Yeah, I've been scared. Scared of losing you, scared of what it would mean if we admitted the truth. There it was, the confession. Fragile but real. The conversation tumbled forward after that. Hesitant at first, then faster, spilling out all the things we had kept buried. Every grievance, every misunderstanding, every hurt that had been swallowed to keep peace, it all came out in a rush. There were tears, yes, and there was anger, but beneath it all, there was a sense of relief, like finally unclenching after holding a weight for too long. We talked about the moments that had broken us, the choices we regretted, the words that had been left unsaid. I remembered nights spent lying awake, imagining scenarios where we tried harder, loved harder, and sometimes wondering if it was too late. And now, sitting here across from them, I realized that the fear of ending things had kept us trapped in patterns that weren't healthy, but acknowledging that fear might be the first step toward something better at some point. The conversation shifted to memories, insignificant moments that suddenly felt monumental in retrospect. The way they laughed when I told a bad joke, the times we stayed up late arguing about nothing, the quiet Sunday mornings spent wrapped in blankets and coffee. We remembered the reasons we had fallen in love in the first place, and for a fleeting moment the heaviness lifted, replaced by a fragile warmth. But the real test came when we had to confront the things we had done to hurt each other, the lies, the half-truths, the betrayals that neither of us had wanted to admit. There was no sugarcoating it. We named each wound, each scar, and we owned them. And in doing so, something shifted. The blame that had hovered in the air began to dissipate, replaced by understanding and the possibility of forgiveness. "I can't promise it'll be easy," I said, my fingers tracing the rim of my coffee cup. "I can't promise we'll get everything right from here on out, but I can promise that I'm willing to try, that I want to try." Their eyes softened, a tear escaping and trailing down their cheek. "I want to try to. I've spent too long running from what's true. I don't want to do that anymore, not with you." And in that moment, despite all the chaos of the past, despite all the pain, there was a fragile sense of clarity. We weren't healed, not yet, but we were here, facing each other, ready to confront the messy, complicated truth instead of hiding from it. And somehow, that felt like the first real step toward a life we both wanted, one where honesty and trust could begin to grow. Again, the hours passed unnoticed. Coffee cups were refilled, voices softened, and there was laughter, small, cautious, but genuine. For the first time in months, the heaviness lifted, replaced by a sense of shared resolve. We both knew the road ahead would be difficult, littered with challenges and moments of doubt, but there was also hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, we could find a way back to each other without losing ourselves in the process. By the time we left the coffee shop, the sun had climbed higher in the sky, spilling golden light across the streets. I felt a weight lift from my chest, replaced by a tentative optimism. We walked side by side, not needing to fill every silence with words. Sometimes presence alone was enough. And in that quiet, there was a promise that the next chapter, though uncertain, would be written together, with courage and honesty guiding each step. As we parted ways that afternoon, a sense of calm settled over me. The confrontations had been painful, yes, but necessary. And in facing the truth, I realized that we weren't just surviving, we were starting to truly live, to feel, and to rebuild what had been fractured. The storm hadn't passed entirely, but for the first time, I felt we were standing on the edge of something real, something lasting, and it was ours to shape. That night, I sat by the bedroom window, staring out at the rain-slicked backyard. The droplets shimmered under the streetlights, scattering light like fragments of memories I had tried to push aside. The room was quiet enough that I could hear my child's even breathing from the small bed beside me. The silence wasn't emptiness. It was weighty, full of all the arguments, silences, and tense moments that had accumulated over the past weeks. And yet, beneath it all, there was a fragile sense of relief. I thought back to the conversation we had just days ago in that corner coffee shop, the way we had sat across from each other, admitting every hurt, every mistake, every word we had swallowed out of fear or pride. I remembered the tears, the hesitant laughs, the moments when we had to stop simply to breathe. That day, for the first time in months, honesty had broken through the weight we'd been carrying, and I realized that facing the truth, no matter how painful, was the first step toward healing. The next morning, we started small. A cup of coffee shared, a smile exchanged, checking in on each other not out of obligation but genuine care. We tidied up the house together, rearranging old trinkets and photographs that carried both joy and pain. Every little act, whether moving a book back on the shelf or hanging a picture straight, became symbolic, a quiet, tangible way of restoring order just in the home. But in our relationship and in our hearts, we learned to apologize without expecting perfection or playing blame games. Arguments became opportunities to listen, to understand, to grow, and more importantly, we forgave ourselves. We weren't perfect, we never had been. But instead of letting guilt or resentment weigh us down, we chose to look forward, day by day, learning to navigate life together with patience and intention. One evening, we sat on the balcony, looking up at a sky dotted with stars. We didn't need to fill the silence with words, just holding hands, feeling the warmth and presence of each other was enough. I realized then that peace isn't the absence of chaos, it's the ability to accept imperfection in ourselves, in others, and in life. It's about finding joy in ordinary moments. The soft glow of streetlights on rain-soaked streets, the way our child giggles when we read a bedtime story, the quiet comfort of a hand held in yours. As time passed, even the rain no longer felt oppressive. Every drop seemed to wash away lingering pain, leaving room for clarity and hope. Each day became a blank page, and together we began to write our story, not flawless, but honest, full of love, and deeply meaningful. We learned to respect each other's rhythms, to love without possession, to embrace mistakes as chances to connect more deeply. On a late weekend night, after our child had fallen asleep, I returned to the window, looking out at a city that seemed to hold its breath. The soft yellow streetlights reflected on wet asphalt, glinting like tiny jewels. I felt a calm settle over me, a profound peace that wasn't found in dramatic moments, but in ordinary life, in laughter at the dinner table, in the quiet nods of understanding, in the warmth of shared presence. Peace was no longer an idea I chased, it existed right here, right now, in the small, lived details of life. We understood, of course, that the road ahead wouldn't be smooth. There would still be storms, moments of doubt, misunderstandings, days when old habits threatened to resurface. But now we had learned to face them together. We no longer hid from fear or pretended everything was perfect. We walked forward hand in hand, anchored by honesty, love, and patience, building a future not just of survival but of real happiness. I took a deep breath and smiled, quietly telling myself, we made it here, and we will keep going together. Peace wasn't a distant promise anymore. It was tangible, living in every gesture of care, every shared laugh, every honest conversation, and every breath we took together. And so, the final chapter closed not with grand declarations or dramatic gestures, but with presence, forgiveness, and the quiet certainty that whatever storms may come, we would face them side by side, hand in hand. Peace had finally arrived. Not perfect, but real. And most importantly, it was ours, built with every ordinary day, every small act, and every loving choice we made. As I finally turned away from the window, I felt an unusual stillness in my chest, a calm that didn't demand applause or acknowledgement. It was simple, steady, and utterly human. Life wasn't flawless, and we weren't either. But for the first time in a long while, it felt like we were truly living, and that was enough.